Hi everyone, it's Miss Terry, and today I'm going to talk about some new selections in the science fiction and fantasy genre. This first story is called Sanctuary, and it takes place in the near future of 2032 in the United States, where everyone is chipped. They all have a chip embedded in them that allows the government to track all of their movements. So it's very difficult to be an undocumented immigrant in this time, but that's exactly what 11th grader Valley is doing. Her mom and she and her brother are living undetected with counterfeit chips embedded in them. But unfortunately, their mom's chip malfunctions, and now Valley and her brother Ernie are in a race to cross the country to get to California, which has become a sanctuary state for everyone. And the U.S. government is actually walling off California so that nobody can get into it. So Valley and her brother actually hire a coyote to help them cross, and things don't go very well, and they end up having to try to survive on their own as they race to California and try to hide from the deportation force, which is a very militant group that will stop at nothing to stop them. So it's called Sanctuary. This next one is a dystopian called The Key to Fear, and a virus, very apropos right now, called Cerebus has pretty much decimated most of the population, and it's spread through touch. So now physical affection is a thing of the past, and the Key Corporation is the one that has stepped in and has found a way to stop the spread and to live life so that people can survive, but they control every aspect of the world, including they even have robots that kind of raise babies. And even though you're not supposed to touch at all, they still encourage teens to get married and start families. But the Key Corporation just says, this is who you're going to marry, this is where you're going to live. Their slogan is no touching today for a healthy tomorrow. And this is the story of Elodie, who's never really questioned her existence in this world. She's a nurse, and she ends up allowing a terminal patient to escape, and his name is Aiden, and he's a part of a rebel group, and now she's determined to track him down to find out what he knows, and he's starting to help her see that the Key Corporation is not all it's cracked up to be. So that's The Key to Fear. This next one is called A Curse of Roses, and this is actually a historical fantasy. It takes place in the year 1288 and tells the story of, this is a tough name to say, Isabel, who is 17 years old, and she is the fiancée of King Dennis of Portugal. So this looks at some Portugal legend, where she has been cursed, where all food in her presence turns to flowers. So the Portuguese people are dying of starvation because of this curse. So she decides to hook up with her lady's maid and the enchantress Mora in order to find a magical being that has been locked away but can only be unleashed with a kiss. But they believe that that is going to be their country's salvation. So that is called A Curse of Roses. This next one is a historical science fiction, and this one is called Skywatchers. It takes place in 1952, where 7 teens decide to volunteer for the Skywatch Club, and it's their job basically to watch the skies for Russian planes during the Cold War. And one night they see some mysterious lights that they follow into the woods, and they disappear, returning days later, and only 3 of them come out of the woods. Later on, they discover that they have something embedded behind their ear, and they have some skills that they didn't have before. So the 3 of them decide to use these new skills in order to track down what exactly happens to them. And of course, one of the group definitely thinks it has to have been aliens. So that's called Skywatchers. This next one is called The Endless Skies, and this is about 16-year-old Rowan, who has been training her whole life to become a Leonidai warrior, which is a shape-shifting warrior that is part human, but that can also turn into a 4-legged lion that flies to protect her kingdom, which is Heliana, from the world of men. There are 4 different races in this world apart from men, and the men have unleashed kind of a virus that wiped out the Fox clan, and so the king and queen of Helenia raised their kingdom up into the skies in order to protect it. Well, now there is a strange plague that is afflicting the children of this kingdom, and they decide to send 4 of their best warriors down to the world of men to find a cure. So it's called The Endless Skies. This next one is called Dustborn, and this is about a girl named Delta And it's kind of in this apocalyptic world that is dry and lack of water and just dusty. And this is where Delta lives with her pack of her family pack. It's not her true family except for her sister, who is actually pregnant at the beginning of the story. She ends up trying to go find a medic with her sister. Unfortunately, her sister does die in childbirth, so now she has this baby. And when she comes back to where her family have been staying, pretty much they've disappeared or have been murdered. And she decides that the reason behind it is probably the tattoo that has been branded on her back of a mythical green paradise amongst this Dustborn world. And she now is trying to track down those who have destroyed her family and possibly find this paradise. This book, the main character reminds me a lot of Rey from the Star Wars series. So it's called Dustborn. This next one is a super quick, fast read about a young boy who it's called Mr. Universe, and it's about a boy named Michael who goes to visit his science-minded inventor uncle Henry, who has been building a quantum multiverse transporter. Well, Michael is fooling around in the laboratory and ends up stepping on it and gets transported to another universe that he dubs Earth 2. And there he meets a girl named Emily who has lost her memories, and the two of them are at her school when these strange men burst in with razor teeth and start chasing them, and they are trying to figure out what exactly is going on and how Michael and maybe even Emily can come back to their own universe. So it's called Mr. Universe. Like I said, action-packed page turner. This next one is called Realm Breaker, and this takes place in a world where there are spindles, which are doors to other worlds. And basically they think there's these myths of these beings that are immortal, but then one appears, and his name is Terrastan, and he has a spindle blade, and his goal is to open as many different realms as possible. And a group of kind of ragtag characters, a pirate, an elder, an assassin, a young queen, and the squire of a dead knight, decide to band together in order to find him and stop him. This is a pretty epic fantasy, but if you've read anything else by Victoria Aveyard, you'll know it's worth the time and energy you put into it. And then the last one I'm going to talk about today, this one is called Incendiary, and this is also a fantastical story about a world of magic, and it centers on a girl named Renata, and she is a memory thief. She is feared and cursed in her own world of people called the Mora, but she also is highly prized by an evil king who has murdered her family and taken her at a young age in the hopes that she can use her skills to give him secrets to help battle his enemies. And she's been living there most of her life when she ends up getting rescued by a rebel group of Moras who really don't trust her, but they don't want her in this king's clutches either. And when part of the mission goes wrong and she ends up losing her boyfriend, who gets captured by the king, she decides that she's going to go into the very kingdom that has enslaved her most of her life and rescue him. So this is the first in a two-part series, Incendiary. Enjoy.